Alright, so we have a glass funnel here with a small piece of cotton at the bottom to act like a plug. I'm going to go ahead and filter my extract here from the spinach leaves into the separatory funnel. So let's go ahead and just get all of our green into there. And this is so that, we filter out any of the little solid particles from the extraction portion here. Okay, and if you notice down below, we are already getting a little bit of a two-layer system down there. There was a small amount of methanol in this extract, and methanol is much more miscible with water, so there were some droplets of water in the separatory funnel, and we see, the methanol and the water joining forces over here in the bottom layer. The top layer is definitely your hexane, since it is the least dense of all of the liquids that were in our concoction here. So we need 5 milliliters of deionized water here. I'm just checking my minutes, just making sure we are at 5 milliliters. So I am now adding 5 milliliters of water to my separatory funnel here. And again, if you notice, the water layer grew, so this bottom layer here grew. And I'm going to add the cap to my separatory funnel, and we're going to go ahead and invert, just like you saw in the extraction of caffeine experiment. We're going to invert a couple times, and then I'm going to go ahead and vent. Did you see that water droplet pop out? Yes, you do still produce some carbon dioxide in this experiment, so it's important to vent. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and separate that lower layer. Because we're interested in the hexanes layer, which is up above, I'm going to go ahead and release the lower aqueous layer, which we will not be using for the extraction. Okay, I'm going to repeat the extraction with another 5 milliliter portion of water here. This is to ensure all of the aqueous compounds are out of the extraction. More venting is required. There we go. And in the second round, there's not as much gas being released, and that's totally fine. Okay, so again, I'm letting out the lower aqueous layer. And if you notice, this time the aqueous layer is even more clear than the first portion. Got a little bit to the other side here, and that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and let this little bit out, just because I did notice that it has a tiny little bit of a solid that managed to get through my funnel. So I'm going to go ahead and let that out. Now in my layer that I am keeping, I have only hexanes up in this upper layer with the nice dark green color. Down below, this is my aqueous layer, which contains water and whatever methanol was left over from when we were crushing the spinach in the mortar and pestle. And you see a couple of floating solids that managed to get through my funnel. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take our extract here, the hexanes layer, and we're going to dry it with some sodium sulfate. Okay, so I'm adding my my upper hexanes layer to the Erlenmeyer flask here. We want to use this type of Erlenmeyer flask that has a lid so that we can add our sodium sulfate. And we don't need to measure really how much sodium sulfate we add. We're just going to go ahead and add a few microscoops here to dry out our solution. And this is in case there's any water droplets in the liquid that I have collected in the upper layer. This just ensures that we have no water in the liquid that we are trying to isolate from the spinach. And I'm searching for water bubbles, but I don't see any. What we would see down here is some very yellow present globs if we did have any water in here. And it looks like we don't. I just see the salt and the nice dark green. So we're going to let this sit for a little bit so that the sodium sulfate can do its job. Once we complete the drying process here, we're going to filter out that salt and take this to the rotavac to evaporate out the liquid. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and filter our extract here from the spinach into a scintillation vial. And this scintillation vial will be able to fit onto our adapter that goes eventually to the rotavac. I have a small piece of cotton. I'm just going to angle this towards you in my funnel here. I don't know if you can see the white dot of cotton. And what I have here around it is just a clip so that we create a little gap of air between the two pieces of glass, so we don't create a vacuum in there. All right, so we're going to go ahead and filter this through. And the reason why we're filtering this is to prevent any of the sodium sulfate which is the drying agent here, from coming on through to the other side. Okay, so it looks like we did pretty good. And the sodium sulfate actually did pretty well in staying behind over here. If you notice, we got some grains of salt. They're green from trapping, some moisture that was in the liquid here. And I'm going to try to release what I have stuck in the neck here of the funnel. Now let's go ahead and go over to the rotavap and concentrate our liquid.